In late December, the tilt of the Earth has the northern hemisphere angled away from the sun, resulting in cooler temperatures and shorter days. This is known as the winter solstice. The weather has cooled considerably over the last few months, and morning frosts are a regular feature. The vast fields dedicated to grapevines that are lush and green throughout the summer are rows of bare brown sticks this time of year. The deciduous trees are naked of leaf for these frosty months, while the fields are green and the ponds are full. Those ponds are generally filled by the downpours in the late fall, but now the storms become more frequent and longer lasting. The inundation has driven small subterranean creatures to the surface, exposing them to swarms of starlings and blackbirds intent on persecuting the now homeless invertebrates. The aerial displays are a spectacular wintry event. Joining the feast is the American robin, a few of which can be found all year round in this region, but the vast majority migrate further afield, ranging as far north as Alaska during the summer. Their numbers began to increase during the fall as the less hardy individuals fled the cold earlier than others. Now, there are many and large, loose flocks, making them difficult to count, though hundreds would be a fair guess. You can see the way they cock their heads, as if listening before tearing a worm from whatever cover it was able to find. The rocky terrain up in the mountains has allowed enough runoff to get the creeks flowing. But much of the soft, crumbly earth in the foothills is parched from a long, hot summer. As the rain falls, the ground soaks it in like a sponge, rather than let it slide away, and it takes a time for it to become fully saturated. Once that has happened, the water begins to ooze out at the base, allowing the gully streams to flow. This slow release is like a leaking tank that provides these smaller waterways to flow or trickle for many weeks after the wet weather has disappeared. The low quality of the current pasture and the frigid conditions place extra demands upon the physical conditions of our bovine residents, and some supplemental feeding is required. Even more important is the majority of the herd is pregnant. Alfalfa is the sustenance of choice. We've got some customers at the gate already. From the cow's perspective, the Moo or Eats truck is like the old school ice cream van. When the music plays, everyone comes running. It's a big deal. West of the Sierras, snow was uncommon enough to be a bit of an event, though not in the volumes that might send somebody unpacking winter sports gear from the closet. Except for very rare occasions, it is delivered as more of a dusting. This thin veil is lucky to last longer than several days before melting away. Many trees endure the colder months by entering winter dormancy, slowing down their metabolic rate and most noticeably, shedding their leaves. Not all trees follow this pattern, and they are known as evergreens. Dominating the forest up in the hills are the conifers that could be incorrectly identified as pine forests. Although pines certainly are present, one of the most common trees in the region is the Douglas fir, neither a true pine or, for that matter, a fir. It seems to have its own thing going. Its distinctive small cones litter the forest floor, with seeds being an important food resource, especially for squirrels. Most commonly associated with the mountainous topography is the towering ponderosa pine. Its aesthetically pleasing scale-like bark allows for easier identification amongst what could be referred to as the blur of green. It has fist-sized cones that can also help distinguish it from other pines. One of the tallest trees in the world is the coastal redwood from the cypress family. Found through the coastal mountains from the top of California down past Monterey, they thrive in the marine fog that cloaks the highlands within their range. As one moves eastward and inland, the climate becomes drier and the redwoods thin out, where areas like the eastern hills of wine country contain the last few pockets of these giant trees. The transition zone between the forest and the chaparral in the west is the domain of the knobcone pine. This species likes dry, rocky, serpentine soils of mid-elevations and can be identified by its clusters of cones on either trunk or branches. The cones look a bit like chunky, spiky, gray bananas. The gray pine is one of the common names for this endemic species that tolerates the hotter, drier regions at mid to lower elevations. Its cones are large and the seeds within are edible and were a valuable food resource for Native Americans. Scattered about at various elevations are several species of native cypress. This specimen is the Sargent cypress. Higher up are smaller, scrappier versions that might be the McNab. True pines, such as the ponderosa and knobcone, have long needles. The Douglas fir has this arrangement of small needles, and this is the redwood. Finally, the Sargent cypress. Small streams flow year-round beneath the canopy of these dense hillside forests that are refuges for the California newt. Winter is breeding season for these amphibians, and in less densely populated pools, the process can involve some courtship. Things are less civilized when numbers are higher and aggressive males form scrums over a lone female. On occasion, the object of desire can be literally drowned beneath the forceful affections of her suitors. The fungus selection has reduced a little from the previous season, though there are still many to marvel at, especially in the damp, dark forests. One needs only be careful not to step on the small cup fungi growing along the trail. Mock oyster mushrooms grow on rotten wood, as does the gelatinous, snotty globs known as witch's butter. Polypores and bracket fungi are some of the more conspicuous, prospering on dead tree trunks and fallen logs. The aptly named turkey tail is quite prolific. Here we have our quick reference as to the resemblance. Veiled polypores look like little acorns shoved into woodpecker's holes around the trunk of this Douglas fir. And this lump could possibly be a young lion's mane before developing its icicle-like appendices. A slightly different species growing on fallen pines is the conifer maizegill. Unlike other bracket fungi that have very woody appearances above and below, these specimens have gill-like structures underneath, similar to the conventional mushroom one might imagine. Smoke over a thick forest is usually cause for great concern, but in this case, authorities have taken advantage of cooler and wetter conditions to undertake a prescribed burn. Fire has been a tool used by native peoples for a very long time, but as civilization has grown, the burning has become a controversial issue. Unfortunately, unmaintained forests eventually become a tinderbox that greatly threatens forested communities. These more gentler burns help reduce the rubbish on the forest floor while minimizing the damage to the trees. This reduction of fuel can help protect the forest from potential devastating fires in the hotter months. For various reasons, prescribed burns are not always possible or too risky, so other measures are implemented. An expensive and labor-intensive experiment is underway, with teams clearing undergrowth by hand. Introduced shrubs called French broom create dense thickets that are termed ladder fuels, in that they assist fire to raise from the forest floor and into the canopy. Native ceanothus such as blue blossom are fire followers, meaning they thrive in a post-fire environment, and could also form dense thickets that can be detrimental if a second fire was to sweep through. Here, the second fire in 5 years blazes over Band-tailed Ridge through this hand-cleared area. This is Band-tailed Ridge 6 months later, looking much better than expected considering other areas adjacent got completely wiped out. Time of day, wind velocity, and direction of travel, either up or down, greatly impact wildfire intensity. So while these comparisons aren't definitive proof that the clearing was beneficial, it certainly appears so. This devastated area was once a majestic stand of ponderosa pines that now looks like this, but once looked like that. The rainy season in California is fraught with unpredictability, and several weeks of rain can give way to quite a few weeks of sunny weather. While the mornings are cold, the daytime temperatures can be borderline balmy. Generally, California's climate could be considered mild, especially compared to more northern latitudes and higher elevations. Changes normally associated with spring start earlier than expected, with new leaf appearing through the month of February. Poison oak that spent late fall and early winter disguised as inconspicuous little sticks begin to reveal themselves. The hefty black willows down in the swampy areas are quick to regrow their canopy, being one of the first of the larger trees to do so. Throughout the foothills, the buckeye is another early awakener, sprouting its new, fresh green leaves. Of the deciduous oaks, the black oak seems to respond earlier than others of its kind, along with strings of little flowers, both male and female, and wind-pollinated. Bigleaf maple is a buckeye relative who prefers things to be a little warmer before beginning the leafing out process. Its flowers are said to be edible. Although the cold times can be a bit lean for the nectar feeders such as insects and hummingbirds, not all is lost. Some of the earliest contributions belong to non-natives, such as Australia's silver wattle, with dense clusters of fluffy yellow flowers. Pot marigold grows in congested patches along driveways. Some early wild radish begins to appear alongside mustard weed. Common groundsel can be prolific, with its small yellow flowers and dandelion-like seed heads. It's a favorite of finches, including several species of goldfinch and the red-colored housefinch. They spend a good amount of time ravaging the seeds of this weed. By midwinter, we start to notice some of the native plants adding to the floral display. The madrone begins to produce copious amounts of aromatic flowers throughout their broad canopies. Its close cousin, the manzanita, is another native shrub, occupying a varied range of habitats with distinctive, smooth, polished bark. It blooms with numerous, tiny, urn-shaped flowers and eventually forms small berries in the late summer. Both madrone and manzanita berries are edible, though are not highly prized bush cuisine. California bayleaf trees are plentiful and found in a range of habitats. Unrelated to the Mediterranean bayleaf, known as a spice in cooking, the California species makes for a more intense flavored substitute. From mountain streams to lowland waterways, the arroyo willow awakens from slumber with hundreds of little stalk-like flowers. Coyote brush did its blooming in the fall and is currently seeding out. The hairy tufts will help carry the seeds away with the wind. One of the many obscure species of monkey flower sprouts from the moist rocks in the mountainside, alongside woolly sunflowers. The woolly paintbrush is a drought-resistant little plant that begins to showcase its blossoms by late winter amongst the dry, rocky slopes of the hills. Red larkspur enjoys similar habitat, and although it's poisonous, the plant nectar is a favorite of hummingbirds and butterflies. Speaking of which, late winter is when the tortoiseshell butterfly emerge from their hibernation in tree barks and crevices. This species is known for mass migrations, and its caterpillars feed mainly on ceanothus plants such as blue blossom or Californian lilac. They have ragged wing edges, radiant topside colors, and great camouflage with a dead leaf look when the wings are closed. As mentioned, much of California experiences relatively mild winters, so while it can be a quiet time for wildlife generally, there is still some activity. Bears, for instance, do lay low under cover or in dens, even scrapes on the ground beneath the trees with valley views from their lofty accommodations. They don't hibernate like their cousins in colder regions, and warm, sunny winter days can see them out and on the move. Madame Scruffs is enjoying a stroll on a sunny, mid-February day with her two blonde... Okay, wait for it. There we go. Two blonde cubs. Cubs are usually born around this time, and these two are doubtless last year's progeny, making them a year old. Fast forward 3 months from now, and the siblings have grown quite a bit and are already molting their snow-white coat to something more appropriate to the surroundings. Cubs will stay with their mothers for about 18 months, so these two aren't too far off from fending for themselves. This little chap, filmed in June, would be about 4 or 5 months old, giving a size comparison to our blonde duo we saw previously. As we move into the month of March, we see much of the deciduous canopy well on its way to being replenished. The mornings can still be quite frosty, but the daytime temperatures are becoming warmer and the days longer. There is a definite shift in the season, and little doubt that the land around is preparing to answer the call of spring.